Hey guys, welcome back to Furniture Flipping Teacher. It's Lauren here, and today we are going to be transforming this small hutch into a coffee bar. I've been talking myself up onto the gallows. Every time I try to walk away, I couldn't make it through another day. Everything seems being up in a uphill battle. I was trying to make it. A friend of a friend recently reached out and asked me if I would be able to transform a hutch like this into a coffee bar and give it all the ins and outs. I'm gonna be adding a light, and I'm not gonna tell you everything that I'm gonna be adding and taking away, but let's just go ahead and get into it. I got this on Facebook Marketplace for $100, and then since it was 40 minutes away, I decided to pay $25 for delivery. So they came and delivered it. That was probably some of the best $25 I've ever spent, just to save time, you know. I'm gonna go ahead and start by removing the doors and removing everything that we're not going to be using on this flip. The hardware and hinges on this piece are very unique, but we aren't going to be keeping the hardware. So the reason I'm taking the doors off is because in the inspiration pic that my client sent me, it is more of an open concept coffee bar. So we don't want these doors on here to close off the space. Instead, we want it to be all open.
I personally think that we should do something with the windows.
Go ahead.
Design element.
Go ahead.
Okay. You heard her here, y'all. Stay tuned.
I'm also going to be removing the shelving units. These are some pretty good pieces, so I'm definitely going to put those in my stash in case I ever create something that needs shelves. That way I don't have to go buy new because I can just reuse. And now that all that lovely hardware is removed, it's time to clean. I am going to just be using some good old-fashioned Dawn dish soap to degrease and de-dirt this hutch. It is very dusty. It's been sitting in our shop for a little while, and it's actually harvest season, so all of the dust from them harvesting the corn and the beans right outside of our farm is definitely coming in just a tad bit, but I can just tell there's a little bit of extra dust on here. I just want to get in all those nooks and crannies. These have some really tight spots in here, and so you definitely need to get that dust out of every single crevice. Now we take a clean washcloth in just some plain old water and rinse. Okay, cleaning's finished. That was pretty quick, nice and easy. Now, since I removed a lot of pieces, especially from the top, I'm not gonna be putting those hinges back. We're gonna need to fill in all of the holes that I created. Things like where the shelvings were, where the hinges were, and where the doors connected. So I'm gonna go grab my wood filler and we're gonna get those filled. I am going to be using this Plastic Wood X all-purpose wood filler, and I love this stuff because it starts out pink, but then when it's dry, it dries a natural color, so it's really easy to tell when you're ready to sand. I'm just using a putty knife, and then sometimes I also use my fingers just to shove it into any spots that might need to be filled a little bit deeper. I'm just gonna start down here. You can also kind of mold it to fit into different areas. So something like that. You've got those deeper holes. It could take more than one application as well. Once you sand it back, you'll know if it's flush or if you need another application.
All right, that does it for wood filler, and I'm just really thankful that this hutch overall is in great condition. So there were no gouges or anything like that that I had to fix because it was damaged. All of this wood filler was just basically filling in holes from everything that I had removed. So once this dries, we'll come back, sand it down, scuff sand everything, and paint. All right, we're neutral colors, so that means it's dry. So I'm gonna grab my Surfprep sander and I'm gonna start on all the spots that I put wood filler in, and then I'm gonna scuff sand the entire thing. I'm gonna be using 220 grit for all of that. So now I'm just gonna take the same sandpaper that I was using on my sander and just get all of these spots. I could do it with my sponge sander, but I'm just gonna do it quick with my hand, just to roughen up this surface as well. We're over here because I had to do a makeshift ladder to get on top of the hutch so that I can drill a hole, because like I said at the beginning, I am going to be installing a light. So I am using I believe this is a 2-inch drill bit, and so this is gonna make a 2-inch hole in the top here so that we can string a light down, and there will be a light under there to make the coffee bar light up. So I've got my center point here, and it's really hard to see, but it's there. And I'm gonna just put this drill bit here and go nice and slow. I did do a practice round over there, so hopefully this works. Well, that was easy, but unfortunately it did take some of the wood off, so we'll definitely have to just put some wood filler under there and fix that all up, but that was way easier than I thought. This is very thin, so there we go. Now we gotta put wood filler on that. Okay, now we're gonna test it real quick, and we can maneuver it a little bit, but I think that looks good. All right, now that we've got the light figured out, I'm gonna just clean this all up and we're gonna prep for paint. Okay, it's time to prep for paint, and that includes a couple of different things. I'm gonna be taping off some spots that I don't wanna get any paint, and then I'm also gonna be using this shellac spray, which is just a clear only shellac, so it's like Bin Zinsser primer. Well, it is, but it's not white, it's just the shellac part. So the reason that I'm only using this is because I'm just gonna be doing some spot treatments, basically where I went through to the raw wood and I kind of like broke through the finish. The paint that I'm using does have a primer built in, but it's not necessarily that stain blocking primer. So I just want to take the extra step and use the shellac on those areas. And then, like I said, I'm going to tape off some other areas. All right, it's time to move the spray booth over here because I am going to be spraying melange paint for the very first time. We got the spray booth all set up, the pieces over there laid down, drop cloths are down, so we're ready to put some paint in our sprayer. I am going to be using melange, and I'm going to be using a newer color that came out in September. It is Nirvana Green, and it is a very beautiful color. This is very close to the color that the inspiration picture was that my client sent to me, so I'm so glad that I get to try this out. This is really gonna tie into her cabinet colors, her floor colors, and everything in her kitchen. Just a pro tip, always make sure to double check colors with your customer. Don't be guessing on what colors they want. Send over or meet up with them to make sure that you've got the nail on the head with the color. It would be horrible if you did a whole entire piece and they didn't like it. So always double check and confirm. Again, like I said, this is my first time spraying melange paint, but I've heard amazing things when people spray this melange paint is pretty thin as is, but I am going to just be adding a bit of water. It's not a chalk paint, but it's an acrylic based paint, and it is water based, not oil based, so it'll be fine if I do add a little bit of water to thin it out. Remember, when you're spraying, always strain your paint so that any imperfections in the paint, any chunks or things that could get in there, doesn't get into the portion that's holding your paint, or else it'll clog your sprayer. I'm just trying to get as much of the paint out as I can. I'm just gonna put a little water in this, put that lid back on, shake it to get some of that paint released. And then we'll pour that in there as well. So that's me adding that little bit of water. So this is my sprayer that is cordless, so it's operated by a DeWalt battery. So we're gonna get that hooked up. It's a Graco TC Pro airless cordless handheld sprayer. I'll link it down below, and you can find it on Amazon. This is just a little bit of a more advanced sprayer, I'd say, than the Wagner that I use. So I'm just getting all that air out. The most essential step of spraying is to test your spray pattern before you spray your piece. I've had lots of questions about my sprayer it's spraying too much paint. Should I thin it out more, or things like that? Don't thin it out too much, because that's just gonna make it come out more. Start on the lowest setting and then work your way up, and always test your spray pattern before you do it on your piece. Trust me. So to me, that looks like a pretty decent spray pattern. I'm not getting any clumps or anything like that. And on that first coat, it's fine to get a lighter coat of coverage. And then on that second coat, when you come back, you'll get that full coat. So let's go ahead and go. Okay, we're good on coat one. Like I said, just a nice light coat, and I had the perfect amount of paint in here, maybe even a little left over, which I'm really glad about, because if you guys saw me in this video, we'll put it right up here. If you guys saw me over there doing this sprayer for the first time, I used so much paint because it was my first time and I wasn't really testing it out very well. So definitely lived and learned through that process, and that project was a good first try, and I'm glad that now that I'm doing the second try, I'm not using as much paint. We're gonna let this dry now, and then we'll come back for coat number two. Okay, so the first coat of paint is all dry, and so I'm gonna set this up because I've noticed a few spots where I do need to put some more wood filler, just as I thought I might need to. Sometimes you can't completely tell if it's flush until you've got that first coat of whether it be primer or paint on the surface. So mostly it's in these bigger areas where I had to fill like the pretty big holes. But while we're doing this, I'll also just make sure that everything else is also still filled in nicely. So those are much thinner layers this time, so it shouldn't take long to dry at all. And then once those dry, I'll just sand them down and we'll be able to do coat number two. All right, we're ready for coat number two. So I'm gonna throw my mask on and test my sprayer just to make sure that it's still in the right settings that I want it to be, even though I haven't changed it. It's a new day and I just need to make sure that my spray pattern is good. All right, second coat is finished. It's looking really good. Once this is dry, I'm gonna set it up and unpeel the tape and open the doors and things like that, and I'll be making all the touch-ups.
while that's drying, I want to introduce you guys to today's sponsor, FlexiSpot. I don't know how to say this, but sometimes Laura is always getting sent all of this, and I know it's for the both of us, but sometimes it's nice to get a gift myself. So I want to say thank you to FlexiSpot. They actually sent us out a stand-up desk. So let's go ahead and set this bad boy up and tell you guys what we're going to be using it for and what it's going to allow me to do here in the shop.
I was trying to make it on my own, my way.
And bada bing. Not all the way done just yet, but it took us longer to get it out of the box than it took us to set up. So I really like that ease and the install process. We had to install 8 total screws on the bottom to get this onto the base or to the top of the desk, and then just 4 more screws to get the feet or the shoes onto the legs. So that was it. 15 minutes, maybe 10-15 minutes. And the instructions, very easy to use, but let's get this thing connected. We have, for the last few steps, we are going to be connecting the motor plug to the base of the machine. So I don't know if Lauren can see it, but just right over there. And that's what gives power to the standing and the rising. They put a little Velcro pieces onto the power block and to the desk portion. So that's nice, so it's not hanging or anything. Let's get this flipped and let's get this plugged in. And just like that, we have ourselves a fully functional, really nice looking stand-up desk. So again, I want to say thank you to FlexiSpot, and I brought out my laptop and I'm super stoked to have this out here because, as you guys know, I do all the video and stuff behind FFT, and I always find myself watching paint dry essentially while recording Lauren. I know we have 20 to 30 minute videos, but a lot more hours and time go into that. And I usually find myself sitting behind the camera and just making sure it's recording. But where this desk is going to really help me is having it out in the shop. I'm able to bring out my laptop, I can bring out our hard drives, and I can do editing on the videos that we have coming up at the same time in a comfortable manner instead of trying to find space on her workbench or on my lap with my laptop. This is really gonna help in the shop. So thank you to FlexiSpot. Now let's get back to the project.
All right, thanks to Neiman for introducing today's sponsor. That desk is really gonna come in handy for him while he is watching me paint and make pretty things. So like I said, my next job is to do all of the touch-ups. So I'm gonna be opening the drawer and the doors and just painting along the trim. If you didn't know that you could do this, you can take a small screwdriver and help you open the doors and drawers if you don't have the hardware on and it went closed. So as you can see, when I sprayed, I didn't get the top there. So I still want it to be painted. So I'm just gonna take a little detail brush with my extra Nirvana paint and make that all come together with that Nirvana color. All right, looks like I got all of the touch-ups finished up, and so now we're gonna let those dry a little bit and then we'll come back and we'll do the top coat. Time for the top coat. So I left my Nirvana green in this container and I'm just gonna be pouring the Melange satin top coat into there. That way it is really going to give it a little bit of extra color, and then we will eliminate the chance of streakiness or cloudiness when we apply the top coat to the piece. So I'm still using my strainer here, and I've got a little less than a full jar here of my satin. So I'm not gonna pour it completely in there. I'm gonna probably pour half of what I've got in here. The reason is because I can always make more, but since I'm tinting it with my color, I don't wanna be wasting any. And then I've got a stir stick here that I'm going to just stir it all together and make it one consistent color, which is basically going to be the Nirvana. And I'm gonna go ahead and hook up my sprayer again, and we'll head over to the piece and do the top coat. I got a little ahead of myself. I had already untaped the hinges, but now since my top coat is tinted, it's gonna make these green. So definitely don't want that to happen. I'm gonna tape these back up. The top coat is on, that's gonna dry a little bit, and then I'll probably do just a couple of more spots a second time. And those are gonna be like the more higher traffic spots, like on the bottom of the hutch right here where things are going to be set on and things like that. Other than that, this is just gonna dry and we'll be able to set it up and we'll be able to move on to some of the last steps. Okay, I've got my hardware over here. So while that top coat is drying, I am going to spray paint this hardware because I don't want it to be this satin nickel color. I want it to be the brown like the hinges are. I'm using some flat burnished amber spray paint. You don't need to spray too much when you're doing spray paint. You just kind of go back and forth very lightly, and then just like when you're painting the actual piece of furniture, you still go over it with a top coat. Now comes the fun part. We get to install some shiplap. So right in the back, you might have been wondering why I didn't paint the back entirely. And the reason is because there was no need, because I'm gonna be covering it up with shiplap. And I actually went to Home Depot and got this. This is 6-inch shiplap, and I got two 12-foot boards of it, and actually at Home Depot I had them cut it as well. If you didn't know that you could do that, your Home Depot or even Lowe's sometimes will cut your pieces of wood. At mine, they do it for free. I've heard that other places they charge, or at some places they might not even be doing it, but always try that out, especially if you don't have a saw or you're not really interested in getting one. So what I'm gonna do is basically start from the bottom and work my way up, because this shiplap is really cool and it's like a tongue and groove. So it basically tells you exactly where you're gonna put the next piece right there. I did a lot of measuring before I went and got these cut because I didn't wanna risk, you know, getting the wrong size or something like that. So it was 33 inches across, and then it was about 33.5 inches tall. That's kind of the part where I'm a little bit questionable about, but we're just gonna really hope and pray that it works out. Here we go. All right, we got the shiplap in, and it looks like I was right. There's gonna be just a tad bit of space left over up here. So I'm thinking what I'm gonna be doing is heading back to Home Depot and getting just a little piece of probably quarter rounds that will help me cover that area, either quarter round or about like a 1-inch piece of wood, and then paint that white as well. But once that is done, we'll do some touch-ups and we'll be finished with the back here. We'll install the hardware and the light, and this thing is coming together. I'm back, and I got a 1-inch piece that is going to fit perfectly up top there. I'm just gonna be putting a tad bit of wood glue up there because I don't want it to seep out very much. So I'm gonna just put that on. And then since that's a really awkward place, I'm not gonna be able to clamp it. So I'm just gonna put some painter's tape up there to help it hold on and for that glue to dry. All right, so once that dries, we'll take that tape off and the back will be complete. But in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and attach the hardware. We're getting so close. Next, I am going to be installing some hooks, and we talked about doing a shelf up here, but just because of the light fixture and all of those things, I just decided to do some hooks for the coffee cups. And so I got 4 of them from just Hobby Lobby, and they just screw in. So I'm gonna do a little bit of pilot holes, and then we are going to screw those in. So I've got to be very careful because I don't want to bust a hole through this wall over here. So when I'm doing my pilot holes, I've just kind of got to go nice and slow. I don't need to go all the way through. And then these screws are almost as thick as the wood. And I was able to tell that by going around to the back and testing it, where I can see the width, and it's very close. And I was worried about that at Hobby Lobby, so I really tried to get the shortest screws that I could. So we're gonna cross our fingers that I don't bust through the wall, because that would not be good. Thought it would be a nice little touch to add some just drawer liner inside of the top drawer, just to cover up the wood part, and then just a little bit of extra detail in there. All right, all finished up with that. And again, that just gives that little extra detail and makes it look even more finished inside. So we're gonna get this put back together and head over to the staging wall. Okay, I'm gonna go grab some things to get this staged. So she might stage it in a different way and put her coffee things up here in a different way, but I always like to just make it my own before. And although I'm not selling this on Facebook Marketplace, again, I tell you guys a lot that I just love to have pieces in my portfolio album. And so Neiman's gonna take some photos of this, and it showcases what I can do. So if ever anyone wants another coffee bar similar to this, I can say, oh, I've done this before. And I actually have done a coffee bar before, but it was a little bit different than this. It wasn't as much change to the actual hutch. I did remove the doors, but I kept the shelves, and I didn't add a light or the shiplap, and I'm just loving the way that this has turned out. I really hope that my customer enjoys it. I love the color. This Nirvana color was actually a color that Melange released back in the middle of September. They are constantly releasing new colors. In October, they're going to be releasing 6 or 8 more new colors. They're just constantly making beautiful colors. And like I said at the beginning, this was the first time that I actually sprayed Melange paint, and it did not disappoint. It still got that buttery smooth finish, and I'm really pleased with the results. So again, if you haven't tried Melange, be sure to use my code FLIP10 at checkout and get yourself some Melange paints. We'll link everything down below. One more thing that I am going to add to the coffee bar is a little hole back in the corner for a cord. So for her coffee machine, the cord can go through to the back, similar to the light cord, and that can be plugged in out of sight back there, and we won't have to have cords running through the front. Neiman and I have been having a really good time outside doing our fire pit, and I did the kitchen cabinets. We are keeping you guys on your toes, so be sure to get subscribed down below because you never know what's gonna come next week. I hope that you enjoyed this coffee bar transformation and you kind of were able to see what you can do with pieces of furniture that maybe are more out of date, like a hutch with doors and shelves. Those are more for the china and things like that. And usually these days, people aren't going to have that type of thing. So they're great pieces of furniture to transform them into something more modern and things that people may use a little bit more often. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on the flip side.